They say every village has its secrets, but in the heart of Odoo, a place where the river sang and the baobab trees whispered, there was a secret so powerful it could change the fate of anyone who discovered it. Odoo was not a large village, but it was alive with color and sound. Children's laughter echoed through the dusty paths. Women's voices rose in song as they pounded yam, and the men's drums called the sun to rise and set. But among all the drums in Odoo, there was one that no one dared to touch. It was called the Drum of Echoes, and it was said to be older than the oldest elder. Carved from the heart of a tree struck by lightning, its skin stretched from the hide of a lion that had never been tamed. The drum sat in the center of the village square, resting on a carved wooden stand, its surface gleaming with a strange, shifting light. Some said it was cursed. Others whispered that it was a blessing, a gift from the spirits to the people of Odoo. But everyone agreed on one thing. The drum was not to be played, not even by the chief drummer, not even during the grandest festival. It was to be watched, respected, and left alone. But rules, as you know, are like the morning mist, beautiful, mysterious, and always fading away. And in Odoo, there was a boy named Tunde, who was as curious as a cat and twice as stubborn. Tunde was the youngest son of the village's palm wine tapper, a boy with quick hands and quicker feet, always the first to climb the tallest tree and the last to leave the river at dusk. He had heard the stories about the Drum of Echoes since he was old enough to walk, and every time he passed it, he felt a strange pull, as if the drum was calling his name in a voice only he could hear. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold and purple, Tunde sat by the drum, tracing the patterns carved into its side. He wondered what it would sound like if someone dared to play it. Would it thunder like a storm or whisper like the wind? Would it bring rain or call the spirits from their hidden places? The questions buzzed in his mind like bees, and the more he tried to ignore them, the louder they became. That night, as the village slept and the moon cast silver shadows on the ground, Tunde crept out of his family's hut. He moved like a shadow, careful not to wake his brothers or the old dog that slept by the door. The air was cool and still, and the only sound was the distant croak of frogs by the river. Tunde's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the drum. It seemed to glow in the moonlight, its surface alive with shifting colors. He reached out, his fingers trembling, and touched the drum. The skin was warm, almost alive, and for a moment, Tunde thought he heard a faint humming, like a song just out of reach. He hesitated, remembering the warnings, the stories of those who had tried and failed. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and Tunde was not the kind of boy to turn back once he had set his mind on something. He raised his hand and struck the drum, softly at first, then harder. The sound that burst forth was unlike anything he had ever heard. It was not just a beat, but a voice, a deep, resonant call that seemed to echo through the earth and sky. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the air shimmered with energy. Tunde's eyes widened in awe as the drum began to glow brighter, casting long shadows that danced around the square. Suddenly, the village awoke. Lights flickered in the huts. Voices rose in confusion and fear, and people poured into the square, drawn by the sound. The elders arrived first, their faces pale and eyes wide. The chief drummer, a man with hands as strong as tree roots, stared at Tunde in disbelief. "What have you done, boy?" he cried, his voice shaking. Tunde tried to speak, but the drum's song drowned out his words. The villagers watched in horror and wonder as the drum's light grew brighter, swirling around Tunde like a cloak. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sound stopped. The light faded and the square fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. She was old, older than anyone in the village, her hair white as river foam, and her eyes sharp as a hawk's. She was Mama Eve, the village's oldest storyteller, and she walked with a staff carved with strange symbols. "It has begun," she said, her voice soft but clear. "The drum has chosen." The villagers murmured, fear and excitement mingling in their voices. Mama Ife raised her hand for silence. "Long ago," she began, "when Odoo was young and the world was new, the spirits gave us the drum of echoes to protect us from darkness. But they warned us, the drum's power is great, and it must only be awakened by one with a pure heart and a brave spirit. If played by the wrong hands, it will bring disaster. But if played by the right one, it will bring blessings beyond measure." All eyes turned to Tunde, who stood trembling beside the drum. He felt the weight of their gaze, the hope and fear in their eyes. He wanted to run, to hide, but something inside him held firm. He remembered the feeling when he struck the drum, the sense of connection, of purpose. Mama Aoife stepped closer, her eyes never leaving Tunde's face. "Why did you play the drum, child?" she asked. Tunde swallowed hard, searching for words. I, I wanted to know. I wanted to hear its song. I didn't mean any harm," Mama Ife nodded slowly. "Curiosity is not a sin, but it is a dangerous gift. The drum has awakened, and now the village must face what comes." As dawn broke over Odoo, the villagers gathered in the square, waiting for a sign. The drum sat silent. Its glow faded, but everyone could feel the change in the air. Something had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed were unlike any Odoo had ever seen. At first, nothing seemed different. The sun rose, the river flowed, and the baobab trees stood tall and silent. But beneath the surface, a quiet tension grew. The elders met in hushed circles, their voices low and urgent. Mothers clutched their children a little tighter, and the men sharpened their machetes, glancing at the sky as if expecting a storm. Tunde felt the weight of every stare, every whisper. He tried to help his father with the palm wine, tried to play with his friends by the river, but everywhere he went, the question followed him. What had he awakened? On the third night, as the village prepared for sleep, a strange wind swept through Odoo. It was warm and sweet, carrying the scent of distant flowers and something else, something wild and electric. The wind rattled the windows and set the drums in the square humming softly, as if remembering the song Tunde had played. People peered out from their huts, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the wind died, leaving behind a silence so deep it pressed against the ears. That silence was broken by a cry, a child's voice, sharp and clear. Tunde rushed outside, heart pounding, and saw a crowd gathering near the riverbank. There, in the moonlight, stood a girl no one recognized. She was small, with skin the color of polished ebony and eyes that glowed like embers. She wore a dress made of woven leaves, and her hair was crowned with tiny white flowers. The villagers stared, uncertain, as she smiled and stepped forward. "Do not be afraid," she said, her voice ringing like a bell. "I am Adaeze, daughter of the river, sent by the spirits to answer the call of the drum of echoes." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Mama Effie stepped forward, her staff tapping the earth. "Why have you come, child of the river?" Adaeze's smile faded, and her eyes grew serious. The drum was played, and its song reached the spirits. Odoo stands at a crossroads. The village has grown proud and careless. The river is choked with waste. The trees are scarred, and the old ways are forgotten. The drum's magic is a gift, but it is also a test. If Odoo can remember its heart, the drum will bring blessings. If not, it will bring sorrow. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some scoffed, others shivered. Tunde felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Adaeze, and she met his gaze with a look that seemed to see straight through him. You, Tunde, are the drum's chosen, she said. You must lead the village in restoring what has been lost. Only then will the drum's true power be revealed. Tunde's mouth went dry. Me? I'm just a boy. I don't know how to lead anyone. Adaeze shook her head gently. Leadership is not about age or strength. It is about courage, kindness, and the willingness to do what is right, even when it is hard. The villagers looked at Tunda, some with hope, others with doubt. The chief drummer stepped forward, his voice gruff but not unkind. If the spirits have chosen, we must listen. But how do we begin? Edie's turned to the river, her hands raised. Start with the river. Cleanse it. Show respect for the water that gives you life. Then tend to the trees. Heal the wounds you have made. Share your food with the hungry, your laughter with the lonely. Remember the old songs, the old stories. The drum will guide you. With that, she stepped into the river and vanished, leaving only a ripple on the water and a hush over the crowd. The next morning, Tunde woke before dawn. He gathered his friends and went to the riverbank, carrying baskets and old calabashes. They began to pick up the trash that had gathered along the shore: plastic bottles, broken sandals, scraps of cloth. At first, people watched from a distance, whispering. But as the sun climbed higher, more villagers joined in. Mothers brought their children, fathers rolled up their sleeves, and even the elders bent their backs to the work. By midday, the river sparkled in the sunlight, clear and alive. That afternoon, Tunde led a group into the forest. They planted new trees where old ones had been cut, watered the saplings, and sang songs their grandparents had taught them. The air seemed lighter, the birds sang louder, and the baobab trees swayed as if in approval. As the days passed, the village changed. People shared what they had, helped those in need, and gathered each evening in the square to tell stories and sing. The drum sat silent, but its presence was felt in every act of kindness, every smile, every laugh. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and red, Mama Efe called the village together. She stood by the drum of echoes, her eyes shining. Odoo has remembered its heart, she said. The spirits are watching. Tonight, we will see if the drum's blessing will come. The villagers gathered in a circle, holding hands. Tunde stood before the drum, his heart steady. He raised his hands and struck the drum, softly at first, then with growing confidence. The sound rose, deep and powerful, echoing through the village and out into the world. This time, the drum's song was different. It was not a warning, but a celebration, a melody of hope and renewal. The air shimmered with light, and the villagers felt a warmth spread through them, filling them with joy and peace. As the last note faded, Adaeze appeared once more, her eyes bright with pride. Odoo has passed the test, she said. The drum's magic is yours. Use it well, and your village will prosper for generations. The villagers cheered, their voices rising in a song that would be remembered for years to come. And as the stars blinked awake in the night sky, Tunde knew that the village had truly changed, forever. But as the days turned into weeks, the true magic of the drum began to reveal itself in ways no one could have imagined. The crops in Odoo grew taller and greener than ever before, their leaves shining with dew even when the rains were late. The river, once sluggish and choked with weeds, now ran clear and swift, its waters teeming with fish. Children who had been sick grew strong, and laughter returned to the homes that had once echoed with worry. The elders marveled at the change, shaking their heads and whispering that the ancestors must surely be smiling. Yet, with every blessing, there came a new challenge. Word of Odoo's transformation spread quickly, carried by traders and travelers to distant villages. Soon, strangers began to arrive, some seeking help, others hoping to discover the secret behind Odoo's sudden fortune. Among them was a man named Okoro, a merchant with sharp eyes and a tongue as smooth as palm oil. He watched the villagers with a calculating gaze, always asking questions, always listening for answers. One evening, as the village gathered around the fire to share stories, Okoro approached Tunde. He smiled, but there was something cold in his eyes. "Young man," he said, "I have heard of your magical drum. They say it brings rain, health, and riches. Is it true?" Tunde hesitated, remembering Edizi's warning. "The drum is a gift from the spirits. Its magic is for Odoo alone, to be used with respect and care." Okoro's smile widened, but it did not reach his eyes. "But think, Tunde, if you shared the drum's power, you could become famous. You could travel to great cities, meet kings and chiefs. You could have anything you desire." Tunde shook his head. "The drum is not for fame or fortune. It is for the good of the village." Okoro's eyes narrowed. "You are just a boy. What do you know of the world? Magic like this should not be wasted on a small place like Odoo." That night, Tunde could not sleep. He lay on his mat, listening to the sounds of the village, the chirp of crickets, the distant call of an owl, the gentle rush of the river. He thought of Okoro's words, of the temptation to use the drum for his own gain. But he also remembered Adaizi's face, the pride in her eyes when the village had come together. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, Tunde called the village together. He stood by the drum of echoes, his voice clear and strong. "The drum's magic is not for sale. It is not for pride or greed. It is a gift, and we must protect it. If we forget the lesson we have learned, the blessings will vanish, and Odoo will return to what it was before." The villagers nodded, their faces solemn. Even the elders, who had seen many seasons, agreed. Okoro, seeing that he could not sway them, left the village in anger, muttering curses under his breath. But the story did not end there. As the years passed, Odoo became known as a place of kindness and wisdom. People came not just for the magic of the drum, but to learn from the villagers themselves. They saw how the people of Odoo cared for their land, their river, and each other. They saw how Tunde, once just a curious boy, had become a leader, humble, brave, and wise. And the drum, it remained in the center of the village, a silent guardian. It was played only on special days, when the whole village gathered to give thanks for the blessings they had received. Each time its song rose into the air, the people remembered the lesson Adesi had taught them, that true magic lies not in power or riches, but in the hearts of those who choose to do what is right. One evening, many years later, as Tunde sat by the river with his own children, he told them the story of the magical drum. He spoke of curiosity and courage, of mistakes and forgiveness, of the day the village changed forever. His children listened with wide eyes, their faces lit by the glow of the setting sun. "Remember," Tunde said softly, "the drum's magic is not just in its sound, but in the way it brought us together. Never forget to care for each other, for the land, and for the gifts you are given. That is the true blessing." As the stars appeared above Odoo, the village was quiet, peaceful, and whole. The drum of echoes stood watch, its surface gleaming in the moonlight, a silent promise that as long as the people remembered their lesson, the magic would never fade. And so, the story of the magical drum became a legend, passed down from one generation to the next. It was told in laughter and in song, in times of joy and in times of sorrow. It reminded the people of Odoo and all who heard it that sometimes the greatest changes begin with a single act of curiosity, a single moment of courage, and a single heart willing to do what is right. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more magical tales and unforgettable legends from across the continent, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join our growing family here at Once on Africa, where every story is an adventure and every lesson is a treasure. Hit the bell so you never miss a new tale. Until next time, keep your heart open to wonder, because you never know what magic tomorrow might bring.